Batman had his parents murdered in front of him. Spider-Man had his uncle murdered. Wolverine was tortured trying to create the superior warrior. Iron Man was tortured by terrorists. The list goes on and on and on of these superheroes that went through traumas, yet come out of the other side stronger. They come out the other side doing great things, and they change society. Welcome to the Masculine Leadership Series within the Fireforge Leader podcast. Men, we are speaking directly to you today, so listen up.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fireforge Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in the Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fireforged Leader.
Guys, I know I just rattled off a ton of superheroes, and they're fake as hell. I get it. But at the same time, we are drawn to them. The human heart knows that the most powerful thing that we can do on this earth is to grow past our trauma and become something bigger, better, and stronger. So that we're not just stuck in the make-believe, I also want to call out some people. So first, Bedros Keuilian, who I greatly admire and you guys have been hearing a lot about lately, was molested as a kid by some teenage boys. Some of the podcast guests that I've had on here dealt with trauma and are out there changing the world as well. Ben Owen, for example. Highly addicted, him and his wife, both of them addicts. They were homeless for a time period. And now they're out there changing the world through their nonprofits and helping the same type of people that they once were. Scott Mann, he carried the traumas of war, and he absolutely changed the world through his play Last Out. He also had Operation Pineapple Express and his books, and each and every one of these is highly impactful on the world. Nick Lavery, he lost his leg in war. Now he motivates others to keep moving, to get stronger, to overcome those kind of things. Drago Zirin, he was a political prisoner in Poland. Got thrown in the back of a car and had his life threatened multiple times by the Polish government. And he comes to the United States and becomes a kick-ass Navy SEAL, writes a book, helps other Navy SEALs and their families and different things like that. And just amazing presence in the world. Ray Kashkar, we see him all the time doing push-ups. He came from a bad past as well. The list goes on and on and on of these people. I want to give a shout out to one of those people that I just mentioned. A friend of mine, retired Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann. Just want to give you a shout out today. I received your book this week in the mail. Amazing letter that you left me, and I love having the autographed copy. I really appreciate it. It hit me deep in my heart seeing this signed letter, and I'm gonna cherish this. So I call out Scott Mann in this episode because this episode is closely tied in with something that Scott talked to me about, and it's been resonating in my head and heart since, and that's the generosity of scars. And I believe I talked about this in a previous episode, but I didn't dive in as deep as what I'm going to today. So what does this generosity of scars really mean? It's simple. Men, we're all going through something. All right. We've all gone through something. We're going through something. It might be a divorce. It might be traumas from when you were a kid. It might be losing a job. But you best be guaranteed that someone else is either going through that something right now, has gone through it, or will go through it. It's similar to what you've gone through in your past. Now, if you made it to the other side, we simply need to be generous with those stories, with those scars. Emotional, physical. I would say that the emotional is even more important to be sharing. And when we share those things, we have this potential to help that other person move to the other side of that trauma and grief. I've been asked a lot lately about all the sharing that I've been doing on social media around sharing my scars. Why are you telling people those things? The ways that you've been hurt in your life, the mistakes that you've made, the crimes that you've committed, the attempted suicides, all of that. Well, to be honest with you, I've found purpose in all of it. I have found that God put me on this earth to make a difference. He put me on this earth to share my story, to share my experiences, and to share them with others, to show them that there's somewhere that they can go from it. They don't have to stay stuck. They don't have to live in that life anymore. And he specifically calls me to connect with men to help them heal and grow in their leadership styles. Another question that I'm asked a lot is, you believe in God. Why does God let things happen to people like what happened to you as you were growing up? Why did he allow these things to happen? And you know what? Sometimes for us, it's hard to hear. But I believe it's because he wanted greatness from me. I have never become tougher from soft, comfortable things. I've never become tougher from sleeping in, from sitting around watching TV, from eating things that I like. Growth comes from doing the work. Let me say that again. Growth comes from doing the work. Part of that is dealing with the traumas of life, dealing with the stressors, dealing with all of that. Now, traumas, and that's a scary word, right? But if you look at it simply, traumas are the negative things that happened in life that hold us back. And we all have them. It's just a little bit different from person to person. Now, my story seems very, very hard to some people. I look at Bedros' story. I believe that that was very difficult. I look at Nick Lavery's story. That seems very difficult. But here's the thing. Whatever you went through, that's your hard. You cannot compare these kind of things. If it was impactful to you and caused you to grow, it was the exact right amount of hard. Another thing that I know is that God wants me to use all of that, all of what I've grown through. He wants me to use that as a guide to others. Simply put, Scott Mann states, be generous with your scars, right? So when I look at that and my purpose and what God wants me to do, he wants me to share those scars. He wants me to share those traumas with people so that I not just stop there, but he wants me to take that and use it as a tool to help other people grow through it. And guys, I get it. There's a stigma out there. And we have to live up to the norms. Yeah, bullshit. Men shouldn't be vulnerable, they tell us. Men shouldn't share their weaknesses. We shouldn't go get help when we need it. Therapy's for women. Going to see someone is a sign of weakness. We shouldn't talk to our friends about mental health. It makes us weak. It's not manly. So what ends up happening when we keep these societal norms in place is we have men walking around the world depressed, with anxiety. They take their own lives. They get confused. They dress up like women. They're hopeless. All of these things are going on in the world. Yet if you pick your head up for a minute and you look at all of the people who are out there absolutely killing it at life, the ones who are really successful, the ones who got great family units, the ones who got great businesses, all of these people, if you listen to their stories, they're the ones that don't live to these societal norms. They're out there. They share their past. They share where they came from. They share the lessons learned. So let's dump that shit in the garbage and let's be generous with our scars. So how do we go from being totally silent about our traumas in life to using it as a tool to help other men, other people in this world? Well, I'm going to give you a 3-part framework today to help you do just that. First, we have to acknowledge the hurts and traumas that we have in our lives. And we got to work on healing ourselves first. As they say, hurt people tend to hurt people. And I can look at my life and tell you that that's the truth. When I was still hurting, when I was still not healed from my trauma, I hurt my children. I repeated that cycle. You can see it with people in the inner city and different things and divorces and all of that. Hurt people hurt people. You know, and the basis behind that is we can't fully serve other people until that healing happens. Otherwise, we're really just sharing complaints. And I'm sure we've all seen it, right? When people get together and complain, they become more negative. When I share my story, I share it as a blessing, not a curse. Which brings us to number 2. We need to be able to, after we've healed, to be able to share our story with authenticity. So I just mentioned that I share my past and my traumas as a blessing because that's how I look at them as. You know, how can God do this to me? God gave me one of the greatest gifts that he could give everyone. He gave me, and that's a bad way to say it. Let me pull back. He allowed it. He allowed me to have the greatest gift in my life. Something to heal from, something to grow from, something to help other people out and be a conduit of his mercy. Now, when something that I've noticed about people and authenticity when they're sharing their traumas, you can always tell if they've healed or not, if they're being honest or not. So, a couple different ways, just take a little bit of a tangent here. If they come across bitter when they're talking about the trauma, they have more healing to do. If they cry during the trauma parts, that's generally a sign that they haven't healed yet. However, I'm not saying crying during your story is bad, but you can tell. Now, here's an example of when I believe that they've authentically healed. I don't know if that's a word. Anyways, if a person cries when they're talking about their story, a lot of times it's in the point of which they start to tear up or well up. I do it often when I'm telling my story. But here's the deal. When they cry about when they're talking about how they heal, right? Or their current life and reconnecting with their kids or whatever the case may be, how powerful of a marriage that they have now. And they start crying during that point. That's authentic, right? That is truly authentic. And I'm not saying that they're not authentic if they cry during the trauma parts. It's just that they shouldn't be out there trying to heal others before they heal themselves. And then number 3, you need to understand your own story. You need to understand your own story. But more important than understanding your story is you also need to understand the journey, right? A lot of times things happen. Right? We have all these traumas, and there's things that are done, and we're not documenting them at the time. But there's things that happen. There's things that you did. There's other people who step into your life. All of those kind of things that are part of the journey. So you really need to boil that down, understand your journey, because without knowing the journey, without knowing those people who helped you, without knowing those experiences that helped you, it's just a story. It's not a tool that can help other people. It's basically, hey, come listen to my story. This is how bad it was for me. Yay. Right? But when you connect the dots, for example, the place that I generally well up when I go through my entire story is when I met God for the first time. And that's when I was standing on my father's front porch and he hugged me. And I knew that I was forgiven. That is one of those moments in time. That is one of the parts of the story, parts of the journey, and the characters, and all of that. You have to bring that together so that your story has meaning, so that your story has a call to action for others. You need to draw those things out. You need to find your purpose in helping others through sharing your story. So what is your purpose in helping others through your story? What are you being called to do with the story that you've been given as a gift? And then take the time after sharing it to be available to the audience, to listen to them and their stories and be empathetic. Make those connections. If they took time out of their day to listen to you after you gave a story, they're already taking something away from it. You don't have to solve their problems, but listen to theirs. Be empathetic. If they ask questions, give them your opinion, but let them ask the questions. And once again, draw out those lessons learned and figure out how you can change the world through them. Men, to wrap this all up, to give you my take on all of this, there is a tremendous power in being generous with our scars. We don't have to hide them away. We don't have to lock them in the closet. Hell, we shouldn't hide them away. That is depriving someone else. They're a gift. The traumas, the stories, the things we went through are a gift to us if we allow them to be. Because when we heal from our traumas, we can be a powerful force upon this earth. And men, let me tell you right now, you are meant to be a powerful force. That's why we're made to be strong and bold. Let's stop thinking that sharing these things are going to make us weak, because they don't. They build us up. They make us stronger. And let's go out and show our scars to the world so that we can help others grow. Now, thank you once again for joining me on this episode of the Fire Forge Leader podcast. This is part of the Masculine Leadership. If you found this discussion valuable, please share it with your network and leave me a review. Until next time, keep forging your path with purpose and passion.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.